Hey everyone, it's Joe Lyons here in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, and Jackie here from Copenhagen, Denmark.
And today in our short talk, it's kind of I should have written out the question a little bit better, but we were discussing, at work, if you're using AutoHotkey, would you be better off if you actually didn't tell anybody that you're using AutoHotkey and just actually got more work done and made you look like a superstar, like a workaholic? Or should you tell people like you automate things and use AutoHotkey or some scripting language? Of course, they don't, it doesn't really matter because they don't understand it anyway. But, should you stress the point that you're actually writing programs? And so it was an interesting question because when I first read about it, I was reading this copywriting book. It wasn't this question, but they talked about, should you, how do you end up making a lot of money? And it was really, the point was, it was a copywriting book. And the point was copywriters that work a 9-to-5 job really never make a lot of money, right? The people who make a lot of money are people that put in extra hours, and it's all the extra research and background stuff that they learn, that they develop this incredible skill set. And they're the ones that their careers really take off, right? Because if you just do a 9-to-5 job, and I think this goes across like anything, you're never going to really grow like crazy, right? You'll have a nice little steady, very slow, steady increase by improving yourself in whatever way you want to do it. In off hours, that's when you can really help your career in your life. So we were thinking, it dawned on me of it's one of those things I wondered, should I have not mentioned at all that I'm writing scripts and automating programs and just made it look like I was really a very efficient person?
Yeah, and I at least remember some of the stuff we talked about from your experiences, Joe, that you at least at some points were faced at being asked to not script stuff. Just
right. By
please
two
do it
different bosses.
manually.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I have this over here. It's doing it really quickly and it's doing really efficiently, and I can get much more work done. Oh, Joe, but we feel like it might introduce errors that we don't understand. No, my stuff is working and I double check it and it's great. But Joe, please don't script your work.
Right.
That's me overdoing it, right? But
yeah. No, that was pretty close. The other one would be like the IT group, right? Which of course you can get in trouble with, which I think is one of the arguments of why you should, consider telling them so you don't later get in trouble, because that can happen.
I've at least worked at three different places where the AutoHotkey interpreter would be removed by the IT security systems installed on the work stations, right? So I had to go through hoops to kind of have that working. Either sharing a little secret here, figure out one of the security systems running on my current workstation didn't actually search its own directory. So I could simply just put the AutoHotkey interpreter there and say, here's AutoHotkey to the entire system. And because the system actually didn't search its own folder, I was able to have AutoHotkey fully installed.
Oh, gotcha.
So that was kind of a security flaw from that software point of view. But in others, I needed to have it on a thumb drive. And again, another one, I could, of course, write all of the scripts. And I could have the AutoHotkey interpreter on the computer for maybe minutes before it was removed. So what I actually did was I had it on Dropbox, and each time I needed to compile a script, because compiled scripts weren't removed, only the AutoHotkey interpreter, right? So I would take it from the script from my computer and use my Dropbox files and drag them onto the computer. They would be copied pretty quickly. I could compile the script And then the security solution would then remove the file. But apparently those things didn't get flagged. So I was never actually contacted by IT in any type of way. So I've only been in situations where there were some security against it, but none that was really keeping me from using it.
I was going to actually say it was one of our other topics I have in that we have a little cheat sheet of topics we want to discuss. One was getting around security. So don't give away too much because
Fair enough.
that's one of the other topics I want to cover at some point.
Yeah, because I've always had that idea that maybe IT doesn't like it, or even though I didn't really understand why, but it's kind of a reputation thing, right? We're so small compared to other bigger ones, and
Sure.
a few script kiddies here and there, or newbies, or whatever we want to call them, have made malicious stuff with AutoHotkey, and it just saddens me that the interpreter is the one being hit by that, as it's not really the interpreter's fault, whatever script people make. But it's most likely because when you compile stuff, it's not really a compilation. It's just a packaging of resources that actually happens. So the full binary of the interpreter is actually there in the compilation, so to speak, in the exit file. So when security systems analyze the file, it of course sees the footprint of the AutoHotkey exit. So that's kind of why we're being hit by it, right? If somehow, or maybe, with the way that AutoHotkey H is doing compiling, stuff like that, might make that work a little bit better. Yeah. I don't know.
But so getting back to the original, what we were discussing was the whole, should you try to hide it versus telling everybody? Which, and Jackie and I have both discussed this, I think in even other short talks as well, is the lack of interest alone, and here's the other thing. We've tried to evangelize, both of us have tried evangelizing to get other people interested, and it's honestly, I'm not going to say it's an entire waste of time, but boy, it's close. Right.
Yeah, and we've talked about that as well at length. Why is that so hard and stuff like that? And truly, I've tried, and as soon as people show some kind of interest, I try to start slow, like almost introductory level at least, or here's a hotkey, or how about you use hot strings and stuff like that. But it seems as if most people need to discover the benefit themselves.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I've felt it, and
I think to add on to that, even though we're getting off topic, but from all those interviews I did with people, which I did with you as well, for people that are AutoHotkey experts and users, one of the biggest common things I heard was someone got really tired of doing something manually over and over, and they had that need, they had that personal reason of like why, and that got them to do it. Right. That's one of the biggest drivers.
I remember one of the thing in almost all cases where I've had work where I've used AutoHotkey, I started using it in secret myself.
Yeah.
When I first learned it back in 2012, I started using it as a great copy paster, right? And I was doing that for maybe months or something like that, until some glorious day where one of my colleagues actually asked me the right question. I can't remember the actual question, but something that made me kind of say, hey, see here, this is way more effective. Or I might have been good enough or been happy enough about what I had to kind of show it off just a bit because, hey, it was working quite well, right? And then it was widely accepted, and
Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting. So if I am getting out of why your discussion there, I appreciated it, but I think I understand the relevance of like your meaning from it was initially I was the same way. It's like I actually didn't tell people about it because I was more embarrassed kind of with what I was doing. It worked, but I knew it wasn't like this amazing thing. And it took me quite a while before I actually started sharing it with people. And then it was really the hot strings, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I mean, even though they're quirky, they're not quirky. That's not the right word. Simple, I guess. But boy, they can really save a ton of time. But I think it's that whole thing where you and I, when we hear people using a macro recorder or sending mouse clicks and this and that, and like, yeah, I get a little embarrassed. Say, you know what? Sometimes I send mouse clicks too, but there was that little bit of, even when you're new, that you're like, yeah, this is kind of quirky, right? It's not something I want to be bragging about, but it solved my problem, but I don't think I want to be writing scripts and doing this for a bigger group of things that are relying on something that's not necessarily that I don't understand, first off, but also it's not necessarily probably the quote unquote right way to do things.
I remember one thing where it was the beginning of something that I ended up being quite proud of and shared and stuff like that. But I had worked at the company for maybe a year, and I had some colleagues who had other tasks than me, and some of them were very, very manual, where I hadn't heard about the task, but one day I walked past one of their desks and they were writing numbers manually on a piece of paper, and I was like, that's weird. And then I saw it later the same day or the next day, and
that's right.
It's just weird. Why are they doing that? And I eventually ended up actually asking the person, because it's a good colleague, right? Just we're writing the values from this page on this piece of paper, and then we're loading this other page. The program was the same. It was a single load program. So you couldn't have both up on screen at the same time. And apparently they hadn't found a way to copy the values. So it was quicker to just put them on a paper. Not that they couldn't be copied. And there I eventually ended up saying, hey, I think I can make a script that can help you with that. And they were so happy that they didn't need to do that, because they needed to do it thousands of times more than they've done. And they were so happy that my team leader heard about it. And then from there on, the entire team was supposed to see it, so everybody could use it to do the task quicker. And one of the administrators from IT, he heard about the meeting and wanted to join in. He was curious to what program I had made. And that's one of the first points where I was like, relax. It's very, very simple. It's just a hotkey that copies some values and stores them in memory and pastes them when you click another hotkey. But it had been kind of blown up to this big thing I'd done. I just helped a colleague write a small script that made it so he didn't have to actually write it out in hand. But from there on, they kind of turned to me when they had these mundane tasks that needed to be done, and asked me before just doing them if they were large enough. And that gave me a great time there, and really helped a lot with my career and stuff. But yeah.
Which I think you just mentioned career, and that's one of the things that I think another reason why short-term wise, you might be better off not mentioning it right away. But if you actually want to have a career and do a lot of stuff, you got to get people to know that you're actually writing programs. Besides, if you don't, you can't really share your scripts with other people, which of course is a big multiplier of how efficient, the things that you're doing. Right. And so that's I think one of the best reasons is you need to be able to share it to be the most, it's not productive, but a productive employee. allowing other people to be more productive, right? To be seen that way, that's huge.
Yeah, and that's the places that have both made me put it on my resume and stuff like that is because I've managed multiple times to share the stuff that I've made, and other people having some kind of benefit from what I've done, not just stuff for myself, because that's also what I've started doing both on. And yeah, I had this manual task, put in all of these blah blah blah, blah, so and so many times, and I had written a script, and I was able to do it over lunch while out. And someone said, "Are you already done with that?" And I was very happy. Yeah, sure, I am. But just doing stuff that helped me when I kept it hidden was nice and all, and I could surf maybe the internet a bit more or whatever and take in other tasks that I might not have been able to otherwise, but it didn't really move me that much. But as soon as others found out that I had the scripts, either by something they could benefit from, or them just knowing that I was able to do it so I could perhaps benefit them at a later point, have moved the bar for me way more. So to me, yeah, when you're new, when you're having a hard time automating whatever you want to automate, then it might be okay because your automation time might be higher than your manual work labor time. So for me to I wouldn't have told anybody that, hey, see, I found this scripting language and I'm planning to script all of my work. And sometime next year, I probably only need to come in in morning and click a button and then everything will be done automatically. No, that's probably not the way to sell it. It's probably better to have some kind of leeway time where you're doing it for yourself, to kind of give yourself some workspace or time-wise space. And then when you're at least at the same level as your colleagues or maybe performing a little bit better, that's probably the time where you can entertain the idea of sharing that you're doing it. Because at least I've 2 times had that same kind of experience as you have, Joe, where someone unknowing is kind of against it because I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Wild, but yeah. Cool. So I think it's one of those things. It's a situational type thing, right? It depends on your boss, your company, what you're doing, your levels and skill. Also, you might want to first develop it as almost a hobby at first, because it'd be unlikely if you're not that skilled in it that someone's going to actually hire you as a developer, right, to be doing it. So.
Yeah, and I think it would be hard for someone to learn AutoHotkey to kind of use it as some way of I'm looking for words, but yeah, I'm not sure that you can actually boost your career by thinking I'm gonna take up AutoHotkey. But you can know that AutoHotkey is a tool that if you become accustomed to using it at smaller levels and as a hobby, as you said yourself, or as a work motivational thing. I used it for that in the beginning, right? Oh, this mundane task becomes almost gamified, right? So yeah, doing stuff like that for you, building on your skill level, and then at some point.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. Part of why you just said that is because currently I'm working on some stuff, but there is no clear course in training for AutoHotkey of here's how you become an AutoHotkey developer, right? You take AutoHotkey 101 and then 102, and you do this stuff. And at the end, you get your certification, which means you can now do X, Y, and Z, right? And if that existed, maybe you change your opinion of you can talk about AutoHotkey as like, I'm going to do this with my career. But there is no path like that, and there's no structure, and that's one of the things that it's unfortunate. But
yeah, and again, as you said, yeah, there is a foundation. That's not correct. There is an organization around AutoHotkey and making sure that the web page is up and
right.
There's someone trying to actively develop it and stuff, but it's in no way at the levels of more pronounced or more known languages like Python and other stuff like that. And most of us also know AutoHotkey, and I even believe that they have a bit more structure to the way that they're moving forward, right? So with AutoHotkey missing that nice structured way of raising a new user's level, that would probably be a great asset to the language.
Yeah, I think it's especially that whole certification type, validation. You take some sort of a test, and you can prove that you're qualified to do some sort of automation, and suddenly now headhunters and businesses can actually have a grasp of what your skills actually are. The problem, of course, with AutoHotkey is it can do so many things, right? We're gonna have to be very specific, if that ever exists, of this is what this covers, right? You have a core understanding of controls and web scraping and regex and text manipulation and maybe a couple other things, and then creating some simple GUIs, right? Something like that.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that, as you said yourself, other languages might have more emphasis on you need to have, let's say, a GitHub with examples of stuff you've done, a resume, recommendations, all of that stuff, and it can be pretty hard to accumulate any of those if you're just doing small hotkeys to efficiently make yourself. Whereas a language like ours to really be emphasized on a resume or others, where they'll see, oh, he has a AutoHotkey certificate or whatever it might be called, right? And by then knowing, okay, he has at least passed that, and that, so we can use him for this level of automation. Whereas someone just coming in and saying, I've been using AutoHotkey for 2 years or whatever.
Right.
That level, or the level that person can be at, can be I know how to switch windows, or it can be I can build a server with AutoHotkey. Right. It's yeah.
Like I said, I think my definitely first two, it might have been up to the first 3 years. It was just hot strings and hotkeys to launch things, and that's all I did. Really, I mean, it was like that was it.
And they're great productivity tools, right? So I'm not saying that people think efficient by doing that, but
and I think it's an interesting thing. I hadn't thought about it. Both hot strings and hotkeys, those are great things for making you more efficient at working, but they're not really creating like a program, that actually you develop something that really expands beyond just kind of working a little bit faster, right? The AutoHotkey you can create entire programs that really do all this other stuff, and that is very different than just launching a program, right?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that kind of was interesting for people. I forgot to set a timer, but I think we're probably around 20 minutes, my guess. So I think it's you got anything else you want to add? Are we good?
No, I think that's fine. You can probably keep rambling, but yeah.
Right. Oh, let's ramble. I think people like that.
I'm not saying they don't, but yeah.
All right, man. It was good talking to you.
See you absolutely, next week. Joe.
Bye.
Bye.